welcome to another episode of Gamer Logic. I'm Mike Mertes, and today we're reviewing a game for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and that is Brink. Now, I am reviewing the Xbox 360 version, but I was actually playing the PlayStation 3 version as well, just to do some comparisons, and for the most part, they're pretty much the same. Unfortunately, at this time, I was unable to test the multiplayer function of the PlayStation 3 version due to PSN unfortunately being down. Now, Brink is something that I've wanted to try out for a while. A friend of mine showed it to me at his bachelor party, and I thought it was kind of cool looking. Kind of forgot about it, and then he recently brought it up to me again while we were playing Gears 3. And I started reading into it again and checking it out, learning that it was, more than just a standard first-person shooter, that it was very much team-based, kind of like Team Fortress 2, or Enemy Territory. In a game like that, you really have to be able to play different classes and work with a team that understands the full-on concept of class-based team games. Otherwise, if you don't have anyone who knows how to play a game style like that and just goes out in Call of Duty fashion, you're never going to be able to complete your objectives. And unfortunately, that is one of the inherent problems with Brink, is that the game is only as good as some of the people you're playing with. Now, this game also has some other problems with it as well. But you got to keep in mind that 50% of my opinion here is going to be based on people I've played with, as well as 50% of the actual functionality and playability of the game in general. The storyline to this game is very basic. You have two sides, a rebellious side and a security side, who really don't like each other for whatever reason. One's trying to get off the Ark, which is kind of this mystical land, not really mystical, but a futuristic land that was supposed to make things better, and it ended up not in the end. People are trying to get off it, a team is just trying to make it better by putting order, and of course the two sides clash. So you either play as one or the other side, and depending on what side you play and what mission you play, your objectives will always be slightly different. You're either defending something or you're attacking something, rescuing somebody or guarding something for the most part. The objectives aren't completely different from level to level. They're pretty much the same. You can pretty much match it to your basic fetch quest in an RPG, so don't expect anything too amazing as far as objectives go. But in order to make them work, you have to be a team. Now, the game does have single-player elements, and it does have multiplayer elements. But what Splash Damage tried to do was seamlessly meld those two together. So you can be playing the single-player of it, and it can turn into the multiplayer version of it. And this is the thing. Anytime you're dealing with bots in a game, and you're playing it in a team-based game where objectives need to be completed by multiple people, if your team-based bots are not programmed well, then you're either going to have a really good experience only a little bit of the time, or poor experience a lot of the time. And that was my experience with Brink playing the single player version of this. The enemy teams would pretty much just destroy us, and I would be running around trying to take care of enemies, and the other team wouldn't be doing anything. They'd be running around objectives. I'd be shot, and I'd be down, and I'd be waiting for a medic to come get me, and the medic would just dance around me like a bot normally would if it was poorly programmed, and it would never heal me. And then probably about 30 seconds after sitting there, it would go ahead and drop a revive syringe. And to me, that was just very, very frustrating. I found a lot of times that there was just no way to pass through levels because my team would just not do anything. So what ends up happening is you just start mowing down enemies to the point where you can get enough of your bots in an area so you can accomplish the objective yourself. Very annoying, very frustrating, and I just really didn't enjoy that. So as a single player game, I cannot recommend Brink. Unless you like very mundane, boring single player games that are fit for multiplayer, then by all means pick this up, but do not grab Brink just for the single player experience alone, because you will be very disappointed. I'd actually be very angry if I was a PlayStation 3 owner right now and trying to get through this game, because I'd be very frustrated not being able to play it online. This is my opinion, however. Again, there's a couple different character classes you could play as. There's the operative, who can hack things. He can disguise himself as fallen enemy team members. There is the engineer who fixes things, he can do turrets and stuff. There is the soldier who can plant bombs, and then there's also the medic who can obviously heal people. Now there's different things that each class can do and other abilities that he can get through the experience system that's in the game. So as you earn levels, you earn the right to unlock things from different classes. And you're not locked into a certain class at one time. You can always go up to a terminal and change your class, which is kind of handy. You can start, like for example, for an engineer, you can go to a low-level mine, to a low engineered turret, to a high-class one, and the upgrades are kind of neat. And you can actually keep your character steady throughout the entire game. If you're single player, the experience carries over, and if you're multiplayer, the experience carries over. So that's kind of neat that your experience and experience point system is all carried over through whatever you do, wherever you do it, which is kind of nice. But it still doesn't set it apart enough to make it interesting, and there are a lot of mismatch areas where I would set up a game that would be my rank only, and I would still have players above and beyond my rank that were absolutely destroying me with like a heavier grade turret than I was able to put out, and it made for a very frustrating experience. Graphically, I will say that I've had a lot of issues with graphics in this game. The game can look absolutely beautiful and then turn to muddy yuckiness very quickly. I mean, the game just looks very murky in certain areas, and there's a lot of tearing, a lot of screen tearing that goes on depending on what resolution you're in. I played this game at 3 different resolutions. I played it at 720p, 1080i, and 1080p, and I used it on 2 different cables. I used it on HDMI as well as component cables. And my component cable experience, at least on the Xbox 360, was very poor. It actually looked the best on 720p compared to 1080i or 1080p. That was the only one that seemed to have a smooth frame rate, and it also seemed to not have all the graphical glitches that the 1080i's had, as well as the 1080p's. Now, through the HDMI cables, I didn't have as much as an issue as I did with the 1080i and 1080p, but it still looked very murky and very cloudy and just not very clear. I could almost compare it to like early Xbox 360 games at times. Like for whatever reason, I started getting reminded of the graphics in Perfect Dark Zero, which that's a game from like 2005, 2006. That was quite a long time ago. And other times there's the graphics in the game that just look absolutely fantastic, but there's no middle ground. It's either very nice looking or very, very muddy looking. The sound in the game is decent. The weapons actually have a very nice bullet sound to it. It does sound good, but the sound effects and the voice chatter is actually piped through your headset, though I believe you can turn it off. It just mixes things up when you're trying to play online with people, and can get a little bit confusing, a little bit frustrating, because it cuts in when you're trying to talk to other people. So let's get to the multiplayer aspect of this game now. And for the 4 or 5 times a day that I've tried this throughout the week, I experienced a lot of lag, which is something that Splash Damage is working on trying to fix, but the game is pretty much broken out of the box. Lots of lag, lots of issues with getting online with other players. Now, probably, I believe it was yesterday, which was Friday, they finally put out a couple more updates that are allowing things to be a little bit smoother. And this is when I got into the experience of, if it wasn't lag, it was my players. People on my team were just constantly complaining that, I shot that guy 15 times and, he wouldn't go down, and he shot me 2 times and I was dead. And just looking at the main characteristic of this game is team playability. And I would look at the wheel in this game that would show who's playing who, and you would have 5 soldiers and no one being an operative, or no one being an engineer, or no one being a medic. And I think just there's so many people that are stuck in that Call of Duty mindset that they're not paying attention to how the game is actually played. And again, that just leads to a very frustrating experience. And again, that's 50% of your game there. So unless you are playing with people who will sit down and actually try to understand the concept of the game, that it's class-based and that the classes need to come together and play, you will not have a good time. So your results are going to vary depending on who you play with on Xbox Live. The random people I played with, it was very, very annoying, and it just made me hate the game more. So as it stands, should I tell you that you should go out and pick up Brink right now? I would say do not pick up Brink. Wait a couple months, wait a couple weeks, see if it goes down in price if you're that interested in it, or rent it and see if you really like it. I'm actually unhappy with the fact that I bought the game, but I'm going to hold on to it just with the hope that with the patches and that the updates come out with it, that it's going to make it a better game. But as it stands right now, it's going to sit on my shelf for a couple weeks and I'm going to go on to something else. Obviously with LA Noire coming out next week, I will be much interested in playing that compared to Brink. Brink, as it stands, again, we'll call it 1.0 Brink review. Very disappointing. I would give it a 2 out of 5. There's potential there, but there are other games out there that you can play right now that just work better, like Team Fortress 2. This has been another episode of Gamer Logic, folks. I'm Mike Mertes. Peace.